What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, back with another video for Babylon to bring to you today. And today we're going to be looking at possibly the most tactical FPS shooter that's currently on the market, which is Lemnis Gate. And this is such a unique idea. I'm really enjoying this right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to show each of the operatives off, what makes them strong, what makes them weak, and then we're going to do some gameplay in future videos. So let's look at this first. So your first unique operator will be Deathblow, and Deathblow brings with him a rocket launcher as well as a proximity mine. Now, obviously this comes with the increased firepower of obviously being able to deal with enemies that are obviously charging or set on their own paths, but then you've also got your proximity mine to be able to deal with enemies that have to come into a certain location and just be able to like mark off choke points. From what I can tell, the rocket launcher and the proximity mine do double up in their explosive nature, but I don't see why you would ever need to do that, considering the rocket launcher and the mine are one-hit kills. And he also stacks on 120 health, whereas some of the others only have 100 or maybe even less than that. So he really is your main tank, your main go-to guy if you need as much damage as possible. But remember that friendly fire is on this game, so just be careful and be mindful when it comes to firing around teammates. Alright, so next up we have Toxin with the Tox Cannon and the Displacer gear. Now, the Tox Cannon is really interesting. It was very difficult to be able to test, but I managed to get a little bit of findings, and obviously we'll be doing a little bit more for it. So the standard like little plates that I was finding in the test area weren't really helping me out. They were able to do like the initial damage of when it actually hits, but it doesn't help me out with the area of effects. Now, the area of effect does do 4 damage per tick. It ticks quite quickly. I haven't been able to get the exact numbers just yet on how quick those ticks actually are, but they're definitely multiple per second, which is great to see. And the direct impact does do 10 damage. Now, I know you're going to ask me, do these stack? And no, they do not. So the more times you hit someone with more pellets, we're going to call them pellets for this, so they'll do 10 damage each time you hit them, but it will refresh the stack. So you can't stack more than one of the damage over time, so it will literally just be one hit for the 10, but it will initially hit for 14 because obviously it does do the stack straight away, and then it will just consistently refresh that, so you'll only be doing 4 damage per tick. Now, in terms of the gear with the Displacer is quite unique. It's quite special to Toxin. I don't really feel like any of the other operatives really have something to this extent, and basically it's just like a teleport, but it's a short range teleport. It has a massive arc on it. It's not like you can teleport yourself all the way across the other side of the map or anything like that. It's more just to be able to get out of the way, get out of line of fire, keep yourself a bit more random, keep anything along those kind of lines. Basically, that is what it's there for. So it's really good for making yourself a really hard target to be able to obviously when it does the turn-based stuff, makes you a really hard target to be able to keep track of, and is probably best used in that kind of way as well, and obviously just to be able to get over some kind of terrain that's in the game. So I do think Tox has a really good gear and really good set to be able to handle a lot of targets, but is not the main damage dealer if you're looking for defense. So next up we have Vendetta with her scattergun and her rocket pod turrets, and the turrets are a very interesting part, so we'll look at those in a little bit of a second. But the scattergun is a really good shotgun, but the problem is that if you don't aim down sight, you have such a massive wide area of effect for the shotgun to be able to land, and you will not get consistent 1 to 2 shot kills. You will struggle quite well with that shotgun, so make sure that if you are planning to use the shotgun whatsoever, make sure that you are aiming down sights whenever you go to choose to be able to have that shot. It does have a very deceiving range, but the spread is such that you would have great difficulty just being able to hit your shots regardless with this. So, I mean, you can see on the range as to how far this actually can hit, but would I ever recommend you actually trying with the shotgun at that range? Definitely not. So as for the turrets that you're able to deploy, they're quite nice. They're definitely not massive damage dealers. They're really more used as kind of like a deterrent. I believe they deal 1 damage per shot that they do, but they fire really quickly, and they're really good for setting up like an initial defense around a certain objective, and it does make you like a priority target to be able to take out, so that you don't set up more of those targets or more of those turrets as time goes on. So it definitely a place to be able to put in long sight ranges. They don't have any kind of like range limitation as far as I'm aware. Just basically place as quickly as you can for all 5. So next up we have Capitan. I do think Capitan is possibly the weakest out of the operators right now, and that's just because she doesn't really have that niche. She's just basically bread and butter, run the mill, basically your assault rifle kind of class. Now the hipfire spread on the AR is pretty weak. It's quite wide for whatever reason unless you start burst firing it. As soon as you aim down sights, it tightens up a little bit, but it's not exactly a massive improvement. But it does do damage. It does do 10 damage each every single shot, and you do have 5 frag grenades, which are impact frag grenades as well, and they are able to do instant kills, which is great, and they do have a massive area of effect as well to be able to do any kind of damage. So if you are looking to be able to finish off certain enemies, you can just chuck these down just basically anywhere, and they will just be able to finish anything off. Now, in terms of the assault rifle, I feel like it's because of that, it's kind of weak. Capitan's definitely one of the ones that I choose not to run until like much later on in the game, until I feel like I need a little bit more muscle or something like that on the field. At least in my early testing so far. The gun is just not good enough or up to scratch. It doesn't fulfill any kind of real role. It's just basically there just because it's an FPS game, I believe. So make sure feel free to use her, feel free to test her out. But I do feel like the AR potentially needs some kind of like accuracy upgrade or something like that to that extent to be able to get you to be able to take her as part of the team. So up next we have the lovable robot Carl, and Carl brings himself a precision beam rifle, and he also brings the protection dome, and this is what makes Carl possibly one of the must picks in pretty much every single game, because that protection dome is just so key for protecting certain objective players or players that make such late plays. So things like the sniper could actually be a really nice pick to be able to, obviously takes out a couple of players really early on, or is able to just protect your rush that we'll be talking a little bit later on to be able to collect 2 of those objectives. The particle beam is quite nice. It's not really much of a damage dealer per se against enemy players, but what it does really excel at is being able to do the objectives where you have to hit them several times over and over again and being able to charge them through firing your weapons, and Carl really is possibly the best expert. The best also part is the shield, if you put it onto a player, will actually take it with them and it won't just stay there in a certain fixed location as well. So that's really nice, and is possibly why he's top tier. Alright, so next up we have Striker, and Striker is your sniper class. He is your sniper role, and is able to pick off pretty much every single one of the single operators that's currently there. Now, I do think that Striker is very strong in this current meta. Obviously, the game has only been out for about a day so far, but I do think that if you're good at Striker, you're able to take out pretty much most of the classes that are currently in this game. Now, in terms of hipfire, the hipfire on this gun is pretty much god-awful, unless you're basically barrel stuffing. In terms of the damage, it does 160 damage to a head, and it does 80 damage to everywhere else on the body, so that means it's a 1 to 2 shot kill, depending on obviously how good your aim is. So obviously if your aim is true, Striker is going to be possibly the best class that's going to be able to take out as many of the enemy operators as possible, like objective runners and all that. Now, the ability it brings with it is slow down time, and this just basically it does what it says on the tin. It slows down time, makes it a bit easier to be able to hit those shots, and makes it that crucial one-shot headshot that you need on one of the objective players for the enemy team. So really is that good, and if you're going to get good at any class, it's going to be Striker. And then lastly, just to really round this off, we have Rush. And Rush basically is, if you've ever played Overwatch, the easiest way for me to describe it is basically Tracer from that game. Now, the special ability that he boasts is basically a dash, but it is allowed to be used in mid-air, it's allowed to be used while running, it's allowed to be used while sliding, all that kind of good stuff, and really just helps with collecting those objectives as much as possible, or being able to get to an objective really quickly to be able to put in a little bit of damage or take out key players. Now, in terms of weaponry, I'm not a massive fan of these because they really do have a massive spread and they don't do that much damage, but that's not what Rush is about. Rush is not really there to be able to be a DPS, it's just purely there to be able to play the objective. Now, the dual shredders do 5 damage per shot, but obviously you hold 2 of them, so but I found a little bit of inconsistency with that, because when 2 of the shots landed it did 9, so I'm thinking it does maybe like 4.5 damage instead, but in terms of the numbers that are popping up for us, it just gives us 5. So but he also is the lowest health class in this game as well, and that's just purely because of how fast they are. So just keep in mind that you're not really going to be using this. You can, but not really going to be using this as an attacker. You're going to be using this as your main objective player in the game. And there you have it, Babylonians. That's all 7 of the current operators that we have in Lemnis Gate right now. Now, a lot of them are very unique, a lot of them have their own playstyles, and it is such a good learning experience to be able to try and get the right synergies, to be able to make the right plays, to be able to counteract your opponent, but obviously still being able to do the objectives that you need to do. Now, in limited game time that I've played so far, it does actually count the objectives that you do, but as well as the kills that you're able to get. So just keep in mind that it's not just purely objective play, it does actually keep in mind if it ever comes to a draw, whoever got the most kills as well. So make sure you go out there, slay, and make sure you go out there and get those objectives. But in terms of strategies, keep your eyes peeled. We will be doing something along those lines for the channel in future videos. As always, thank you so much to the Babylonian members. Their names are currently up on the screen. And keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I'll see you all on that next video.